Right, next part of the show and topic we're going to be focusing on food issues. Now, given we mentioned in the last show about the Irish shortage of food, here are a few more follow ups that will make you aware of a larger problem that I warned about last year. Now, currently in China, which is deliberate, the largest floods in the last 400 years are beginning to overwhelm China's central cities and the surrounding grain growing and agricultural zones. And at present, they are stating that 100 plus million people will need to evacuate, and they are forecasting unfathomable losses of food production, and a warning that China will need to go on a buying spree unlike the world has ever seen for food imports. And they said this will start with rice coming from Asia and will move to every continent. Now, the two largest grain exporters on the planet are also looking in bad shape. Agricultural output in the Ukraine fell 19% during the first half of 2020 compared to the same period last year, and Russia hasn't fared much better either. Now, the Ukraine's Deputy Minister of Economic Development, Trade and Agriculture, Taras Vysotsky, blamed unfavourable weather conditions for the 2020's dire harvest. As a result, grain prices in the nation with big agrarian superpower ambitions are on the rise. And a record cold and rainy May in the centre and west of Ukraine, and also drought in the south, destroyed much of the grain. Added to that were the persistent June rains to the west, which seriously delayed the harvest efforts. Russia is also battling drought. Up to 60% of the harvest has been lost in the south, and prices are on the rise there too. And the Associate Professor of the Timir Yazev Agriculture Academy, Igor Abakumov, said that the last drought was 10 years ago, and with the phenomenon occurring at intervals of 3 to 7 years, it said Russia was over the limit of favourable years. Now, currently, there's no ban on the export of grain, as was the case back in 2010, but nevertheless, local restrictions have been introduced in Russia. And there are mounting fears that the country will suffer a grain shortage again this year, and imports are already being arranged. Now, transcontinental Russia has been buffeted by weather extremes this year. Siberia's heatwave, which made the headlines, surprise, surprise. But what you don't know is that record cold and summer snow followed that heat in Siberia. And what they also didn't tell you, that the Russian capital suffered a record cold and wet month in April. Of course, you'll never hear that on the mainstream media, as they're only ever interested in one side of the story, that we're all going to die from global warming. And it also serves as proof of how the global warming cabal's interest in this part of the world has dissipated of late. But it's all about the cold, you see, not the heat. And could that be because Eastern Russia, and much of Europe for that matter, has been suffering anomalous cold? Or is that more indicative? And then you have had the historic cold temperatures observed in Sweden and Norway this month, which yet again surprisingly was not covered by the global media and their fear porn channels. I guess Greta missed the record cold in her home country and forgot to mention it. How dare she? But we did warn in this show of a potential large-scale food shortages, and flooding seems to be the latest move to do so, given they flooded all of the food-growing regions of America last year.